Hey, Audrey. Nice to seeing you here today. Actually, yeah, we saw each other 1 hour and a half ago, and we kept discussing. And I know I mentioned to you like it would be so great to have the cameras here, sitting with our coffee, sipping and talking. So now we're going to talk about different things because I invited you here. You're co-founding the Bedrock Program, and I want everyone to know more about it.
Thank
So,
you.
first of all, I wish I would have met you when I was in high school, but we're talking about it later.
Yeah.
So, I will let you present yourself and tell us more about the Bedrock program.
Well, thank you firstly for having me here today. It's honored. I'm honored that people are recognizing the work and the need and the vision behind it, because that's the most important part. The Bedrock program was actually devised or designed out of a frustration, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll explain it as I step back in time. In my previous world, my previous life, managing people and teams globally and trying to make projects come together and struggling with the age-old issues that people have of, strategies not quite falling in line, or programs that are reaching their target but could have had such a bigger impact or more potential. Mm-hmm. And recognizing after, Black Belt Six Sigma and learning to be a coach, that it comes down to the people.
Yeah.
And people, unfortunately, over time have been trained to follow a career based on their skills, right? And it's the most natural thing for us to do is to say, you're good in math, why don't you get into economics? Or why don't you get into mathematics or applied mathematics or computer science or what have you? Mm-hmm. And we don't stop and actually ask the person, what kind of an impact do you want to make in the world? What is it that you want to be known for or to do? And then have your skills complement that. What are your values that will make you feel successful in life? Not just, I made a lot of money, I had this career, I've made whatever. And so over time, I realized that that's where we were falling short as a society, because the tradition takes us down skills and rarely takes us to values. And if you notice in the last few years, people have been talking about young people, Gen Z, they want to find work that follows their values.
Yeah, that's meaningful and purposeful, yeah.
But yet, everyone is stuck, because what does it mean to live your values in a work context? And then work says, but I'm work, right? Like I pay you and I'm not looking to be your value guidance, but I have to somehow find a way to entice you, utilizing values to make it that you want to stay with me. Mm-hmm. So the Bedrock program is designed to work with youth and their families to understand what are those values that are so important that will be the real North Star for your career. So when you get to that end point, you're actually reaching for something bigger than the skill that you have today. Because your skill and your passion when you're 15, 16, 17, 18, these things change over time. Right? Even now, we're reskilling, upskilling, new skills, AI, technology, things that we never would have done 20, 30 years ago. So if the focus is on that now, where will the focus be in 20, 30 years?
Exactly.
Not where it is now. So to follow the traditional viewpoint in an economy that's changing so fast kind of sounds counterproductive to me. And then you look at the organizations and the institutions that support youth. If they don't support helping youth understand what are those values. So I'm teaching you in your class as a teacher or as a counselor about the world that we live in today. But I'm not helping you understand how that relates to who you are and what you want out of it. Then what happens? You have young people that say, I don't want to go to higher education. This is irrelevant to me. Why do I have to sit in this class? I don't want to take this in the future. This is irrelevant to me. But if you help them understand the relevance of education within the life that they either have now or that they aspire to, look what happens. They stay in school longer. They have a different relationship with education. They finish university and feel that there's something more to life. And then when they come out of school, and they start to work in these companies, the other thing the Bedrock program does is work with the companies and say, what is your graduate scheme program? Because I'm hearing more and more in the past few years, companies saying, well, the new graduates, the Gen Z, they come, but they don't want to work hard. They're not committed past the 18, maybe 24 months. They don't work as hard as previous generations. They don't have the work ethics. They don't have the same drive and focus. When actually they do, but no one's taking the time to understand what they want out of being there. How can you take that further? And so through the Bedrock program, we work with the individuals, we work with the institutions to teach educators how to bring values or how to bring more meaning into the classroom environment. And then we work with businesses to say, okay, if you're not getting what you need, let's look at it from a different perspective. Find out what they're looking to fulfill in their lives. Understand whether or not your organization is creating an environment that allows them to thrive and give you what you're looking for.
Exactly.
By impacting and understanding their values. And the third pillar is train the people who are managing them to do it better. And it's not a slight to say that managers get a management job and they don't know how to manage. Well, they don't, because it's usually the first job. But they're often conflicted with the productivity, right? We want you to be productive. We want you to do your job as a manager. But then at the same time, you have this additional responsibility, but we haven't trained you for it yet. But you'll figure it out.
But they are also conflicted with the environment they grew up in,
And
which was different.
Exactly. And that's the other side of it. If I am sitting there as a manager and I became a manager or a senior manager by working hard, following the tradition, the trajectory, I knew that, nope, you have to wait 5 years before you can get the next step. Nope, you have to tick the box doing this, this, and this. And then I get a young person who comes in and they're like, okay, I'm ready to, take it all on now and to progress in a different way. Unless I'm taught that there could be another way, I'm going to hold you back. I'm going to say, no, you're not quite ready. I'm not going to see that potential. And in the UAE in particular, there is this innate fear that a lot of people have because you generally can't stay if you don't have a job, right? You have your visa, which is tied to your employment. And if you lose your employment, then there's a bit of a difficulty.
Of course.
So within middle management, you sometimes have this, how would you put it? This quandary where nobody wants to be replaced. Nobody wants to have found their replacement before they found the next role. So succession planning is tricky. Because how do you create a group of individuals under you who are kicking butt and thriving and can do what they need to do even if you're not around, which is a sign of a great manager, and not make yourself redundant.
Exactly.
Unless you know there's a position above you that you're now going to run to. And so what you'll end up with often here is the manager does not create the pipeline. The opportunity comes up. Someone says, well, if we take that manager out, then we have a hole and we don't know how to plug it. So then they get missed for the opportunity.
So nobody ever wins.
Exactly. Exactly. So the Bedrock program is really trying to influence the future of work by putting values first and by understanding your values, the values of those under you, and how those values play out in business and education. What we hope is that we have a much more engaged level, a higher level of engagement with people in their life, not just in their work life, but in their life. Because once you know your North Star, it's really hard to ignore it.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? It's just that seed that sits in the back of your mind that says, I can't move into this direction because I know that there's a deeper reason why I don't want to do that work or go to that company or, take that avenue.
Yeah, because I always, it's super related to what you're saying. I always felt like whenever people were coming to me and saying, I want to be a manager or I want a leadership position, I always asked, but why? Because I think it's very important to know why. It's very important to know that a leader doesn't get to tell people what they have to do. They are responsible for those people's careers, which is like, it's like tough responsibility, but I don't think that a lot of people understand that when they step into a leadership role, they will be worried about those people's careers, well-being, and everything, because you don't want to, I don't know, wake up one day and, I don't know, screwing up someone's future or someone's career, or not figuring out what's those people's biggest strengths and putting them in the right places, or like, let's say, more guiding them towards the right places.
Yes. And I think that what we often forget, or so there's two sides of it, right? What companies often forget is, if you're going to promote someone to be a manager, you need to take the time when they start to help them understand, what does that mean?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm great in my productivity focused job, and I've been noticed because I get the job done. And now I'm moving up to the next level in my career. And this level now also includes managing people. But my strength is in the work that I have been recognized for doing, and for, why I'm here. So what am I going to focus on as a manager? I'm going to focus on the productivity related to hitting the numbers and getting the work done. What am I therefore going to stumble on? The managing of the people. Well, I've probably not done it before. I've probably been on a committee but not been responsible for those individuals. So what do I turn to? Well, I turn to the way I was managed. Woe and behold, if I was managed poorly. And I don't look at this from a pulpit. I've been a horrible manager in the past. When I first got my first management experience, I was terrible. Yeah. I was as hardcore with the people I managed as my bosses were hardcore with me. Right? You stayed late if you needed to stay late to get it done, and I'm leaving. And in the morning, it needs to be done. And you don't question, if Audrey is your manager, her department is gonna, but lo and behold, you're gonna work hard to make sure you show yourself, because that's how I was managed. And it's not until I was able years later to step back and say, but why was it so painful for me? And why is it so painful for everyone else that comes through here? And everyone says, it's a rite of passage. You got to go through it. For me to realize, actually, screw that, you don't. We've never given ourselves the allowance to find a different way of doing it.
That's true. Yeah, that's like what you're saying. It's like really, like I truly feel it, because like when I became a manager, I didn't want to become a manager. So I wanted to have impact. I wanted to do a lot of things. But when my boss told me, like, you need to manage and lead people, I was like, okay, but I don't know how to do that. I may not be very good at it, because I'm like more of an entrepreneurial style, and I'm fast and I'm dynamic and I want to do this and that, and I focus on a lot of things. So I need to focus on these people. How do I know that I'll be able to focus on them? But I think that this whole experience, and at the beginning, I didn't know, like, should I be tough? Should I be soft? Should I be in between? When is the right moment to be one or another? Because I think that's also very important. How can I figure out what are their skills? How can I don't know, in times of, troubles, how can I be close to them but not too close, right? So I've learned that with time, and I think that the most precious gift they gave me was the power of diversity and the power of working in a team. And sometimes I have to be egoistic enough to say that whenever they achieve something and they exactly what we discussed, and when they told me, you had like just 1% there of contribution, I felt like so empowered and energized, and I felt like, but this is my future. This is what I have to do for everyone. It's just 1% that I need to give them. Yeah. And then I want to ask you, like, related to this, because for me the value is education. Now I know. So if you had have asked me way before, I wouldn't know. I would say maybe like I was overachiever. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to do all these things, and now it's more meaningful right? So I strive for education. I want to educate myself. I want to educate the ones next to me. I want to see a world full of educated people that make educated choices.
Okay. And I would ask you,
Oh.
why is education important?
Because I don't know, I have like a hunger for learning anything and everything and from everyone. And then I figured out that there's like only 1% of the things that I know. So then I need to know more, and I can learn literally from everyone if I have the patience to lay back a bit and see, okay, this is maybe a nasty situation, but what am I learning from this? What are the opportunities that are opening in front of me?
Yes.
And what can I learn from these people sometimes that I just don't click with, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of this. I figured out that I don't know much.
But being comfortable
Oh yeah,
in
yeah.
that, and therefore devoting the time to learn in the
Yeah.
areas that you want to.
Yeah.
But the learning you're talking about and the education you're talking about is very much relevant. And that's the key, is that it's relevant. You know, one of the things that we spoke about was when you're in high school and you have to take these classes and they're boring and you do not see yourself, why am I taking biology? I don't even want to be a doctor. I'm not interested in the elements that are coming from.
Yes.
Why do I have to sit in X class and Y class? And I mean, I understand it, right?
Yeah.
If you don't expose the youth to a number of
Everything.
things, then people will miss out on a calling that they have. But nobody takes the time to show the relevance so that this, I mean, a young person who's not interested in economics in high school, it doesn't mean that they're stupid, and it doesn't mean that they can't be interested. It's that they never saw the relevance to it.
Exactly.
Then when they're 30s and they're saying, actually, you know what, this is actually really interesting. I'm going to spend some time and understand it. If they had spent the time in high school, they would have had the basics and could take it further. But now they have to start from the beginning because they didn't understand that relevance to the life they live.
Now that you're saying all these things, like, I often watch Big Bang Theory. So the concept of geniuses really strikes me. So I know you have a story about geniuses, which actually I love, and I think it's very suited to talk about this now, because why I'm very interested in high-performing individuals.
Yes.
And doing high performance, but in a sustainable way.
Yes.
In a way that you have a life,
Yes.
you work out, you eat healthy, you have time for your friends, for your family, for yourself,
Yes.
for your work, of course, but also have some hobbies. So, and you overachieve at what you want to overachieve, but it's sustainable and it's longer term. It's not only for 2 years or 5 years and then you go burn out.
Correct.
So please tell me the story.
So it's interesting because it's a story that has sort of come up over time again and again, and it's come from different people in different spaces. So I'll give you the gist of it.
Yeah.
So there was a study done, and I can't necessarily pinpoint who and when, but there was a study done that looked at a group of young babies all the way through to adulthood. And what they were trying to do is understand what makes people a genius. And they ran the series of IQ tests and intelligence tests over time. And when they were young, the percentage of geniuses in the group was something like 98%. So the concept here was, I have a group of geniuses that I am now going to follow through time. And I want to see what happens as our society takes them over. And what they found, the scientists, and I'll try and find the study and send it to you, is that as they go into primary school, all of a sudden they found that that percentage goes from 96, 98 to in the 60s. So, okay, now you're mid-primary school, and what's happened to the 30%? Like, okay, let's just keep going.
Yeah.
They go through high school, and all of a sudden it's down to the 10s. They get into their early 20s, and they're down to like 3-4%. And so everyone was like, well, what happened?
To the
If we're
90
born
something.
as geniuses and now they're not. And the crux of it is we educate them out of their genius. Our educational system is not set up to even look at the individual elements that make someone whole. Who are you as a person that relates to your genius? So when you start to squeeze everybody into a tiny box that is only educated in a particular way on particular things, because we have to create some sort of standardization of what comes out on the other end. So we know we're hiring people that have certain characteristics, can learn, can do this. But along that journey, we take away the person. We take away a lot of those values, what's important to them, who they are, and create these shells of people that can dictate to you Shakespeare or can, tell you pi into the 0.29 digits. But when you ask them about what's important to them, that they probably could have told you in the first 5 or 6 years of their life, when they truly feel who they are, they can't do it anymore. They're so disconnected from the person who they are. And so you end up in your 20s just following your career. And in your 30s, when you have kids, you're sort of thinking, what's important to me? Okay, it's my career. I'm just going to keep going. And then they get to their mid-40s and they're like, wow, what happened to my life? I've done what I'm supposed to do, but I don't have...
What I'm supposed to do.
But the worst part of that is I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about a midlife crisis. Don't even know what that is. So they go and they see a psychiatrist or a coach and they say, I'm unhappy. And you say, what does happiness mean to you?
Yeah.
And they say,
I have no clue.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. And then you spend years just unpicking. You're unpicking your traumas. You're unpicking to get back to the you of you that you had to stifle in order to fit in.
Yeah.
That you didn't allow or have the opportunity to blossom. And so when I think back to it now that I'm a parent, it blows my mind, right? And I have to spend time carving out a space for my kids to just be, regardless of how I might be irritated, triggered, frustrated at times. I have to bite my tongue. And I have to hope that my family understand that I'm allowing my child not to be rebellious, but to be themselves, so that they don't end up like the majority of the people that I see at the end of their career trajectory, trying to claw back that value and that importance into who they are.
Yes. That's very connected to, I think that's very connected to what you just told me about. We spend our youth not being paid attention at who we really are.
Correct.
And then we go from school where we are not paying attention at, to work where maybe we're not being paid attention at. And it's like 20 something years, 30 years where people don't have a clue of who we are. And it's harder and harder for us to figure out why we're doing the things that we're doing.
Yes.
How do you find the balance? That's my question. How do you find the balance in everything to go to your meaningful why while staying and being relevant in a society that wants maybe different things, or it's built in a way that maybe you cannot fit 100% of your why?
So the first thing I want to say is part of the reason that you hit the resistance is because people are tired of their parents and their managers and their teachers doing and telling them how. They want to experience, right? It's like they want to learn some of those lessons on their own. It's the only way they're going to get it.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And if it comes too easy, you disregard it. That's nice that you told me. I'm glad now I know, but I don't know.
Yeah, I want to feel it.
I know, but I don't know. Yes, I didn't have that. And then there comes the doubt, well, maybe my experience will be different from yours. Maybe I would act differently than she did. Oh, she had that exciting opportunity to experience this. It's like having your heart broken. Nobody wants to have their heart broken, but everybody wants to have their heart broken at least once. You want to know what the pangs of those love songs were. What you know, the ooh, Johnny left me. And it's like, nobody wants that, but everybody wants that.
And needs that.
Because only then do you understand what that love actually feels like, that you were actually searching for. And when you've never had, I mean, it's the classic, you fall in love with your sweetheart in high school, then you get married, and then everything is great, but you're not happy. And then somebody has an affair, and someone's upset, and someone's heart's broken, and then, oh, you were truly my love, I know now what I had, and life is good. So I think that's what, and we need it to build resilience.
That's true.
Because we become stronger when we go through trials and tribulations of our own.
That's true. That's another thing that I'm like, why do we really have to go through trials to learn?
Stronger.
Yeah.
We go stronger, and we develop our own perspective.
Yeah.
I don't want the perspective of my mom or my dad or my uncle. Although my aunties is not too bad. But like, you know what I mean? Like I want my own.
Yeah.
I want to be able to stand on my own. And my children are the same way.
Yeah.
They love me. They love their father, but they have their own idea. And they want to be able to prove that their idea, their value, what they think is important has its own legs.
Yeah.
And I need to make space for that. And as a manager, this is one of the quandaries we have, right? I'm a manager. I know what needs to be done. I have been exalted from my previous role because I've proven that I understand what the business needs, what the next steps are. I can strategize. I probably created the damn plan for the next 5 years. I know. And then this whippersnapper from whoever came is now going to tell me that they don't want to do it this way, or is not going to follow, or is having a hard time because I'm telling them how to do it. When actually, what we forget is that there are a million ways to get from point A to point B.
That's true. Yeah.
And my way may look shortest from my perspective, but it could be the longest way from the perspective of the next person coming in, because they see a shortcut I didn't see.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and this is the quandary. Mm-hmm. Do you allow the question of what you don't know into the equation that you know the answer to, or do you allow them the space to figure that answer out? If they get it wrong, will that reflect on you as the leader? Or will people recognize that you have given enough space for someone else to grow? We live in a right and wrong world, but actually it's a right and right. It's just that sometimes one right might need a little bit more patience. Mm-hmm. So that's what I think on that side. When you ask about the values and you ask about following a path and needing to make space, it all kind of comes together. Because my path and my space will not necessarily look like your path and your space. In the UAE, there's a lot of talk about tolerance. A lot of talk about tolerance. And tolerance looks so different to everybody.
True.
Right? I'm a British Canadian, and I come to this space with these ultra-Western views. And even in the space that I originally came in, I recognize there's lack of tolerance. Because tolerance that I came from said, we all come, we're all equal, but from a democratic perspective, we should all be doing it this way, letting all discussions and points play into view and mix and mingle.
Yeah.
But the tolerance out here says, have your views, have your way, but we still have our country. So we respect you, but you must respect where you are. It's a different tolerance.
Yes.
And it looks different, right? When I left Toronto, you weren't allowed to say Christmas tree. You had to say holiday tree.
Okay.
Because if someone who celebrates Kwanzaa doesn't celebrate Christmas, and someone who's celebrating Hanukkah isn't celebrating Christmas, but they can say Kwanzaa and Hanukkah, but you can't say Christmas. So the whole concept of tolerance was very confusing. When I came here, you say Christmas tree. I say Ramadan. You say Kwanzaa.
Yeah.
Someone,
So you respect me, I respect you, your values, and
and we do it in a way that we know we're clear with what's important
for the other one.
without compromising ourselves, which you can do. Right? It goes back to what we were talking about earlier as a parent. I can be a parent and support my child, but yet still give my child the space to be their own person without it damaging the who I am as a parent and what it means. As long as I understand what the triggers are and I can work at being the best person I am and allowing my child to be the best person they are. All of these things are related in terms of you having a space to thrive and grow, and your mentees or your team members each having their own space to thrive and grow. And I think that if we're able to look at it from this perspective, it would make it so much easier. We wouldn't have conversations about DEI and B. We wouldn't need to.
Yeah. Because
Right?
it would be integrated in our daily lives, yeah.
It would be there. And we would see that that is the medicine for the innovation, for driving the future, for looking at new ways to do things, for productivity, for high performance teams, for communication, it would fall in line. But oftentimes we don't allow ourselves that space. We're afraid if we say it, then we hold it back. Okay, we can't bring our full self to work. Okay, but you can't say this. Okay, but maybe I won't think. Okay. And then the managers are like, well, just do it this way.
What you're saying that we wouldn't have DUI and like if we would all be inclusive by default, because this is inclusivity, like you include everyone. Like I had like a hunch since I was young, so I'm very wide known for the fact that I'm very direct. Some people like it, some people don't. Of course, it's normal. But I have a thing. I play with the cards on the table.
Yes.
And if your cards are not on the table, then I don't play.
Okay.
So I don't play games. And usually I'm very honest about whatever I do, the reasons for which I do it, and I prefer to have open communication with people, even if I don't know where it would go. It might go the bad way, it might go the good way.
Sure.
So before I knew what this holding space is, and before I got myself educated a bit on how to do certain things, how to discover these things, how to let people some space, because I was pretty bad at it, I figured out that this directivity of mine, like being very direct, honest, transparent, helped me a lot in communication with people.
Yes.
Because if someone was upset with me, I was just like, okay, I see you have a problem. What have I done? What did you perceive that I've done, And we had an open communication. But what happened is that I was like this when I was very young. Then I stopped for a period because I was basically afraid of sometimes confrontation, even if I am sometimes kind of confrontational. But then I said, okay, I will use what I used to have, then with what I've learned, that I need to, respect you, not go full blown, direct and transparent in your face because you might not like it.
Or just not used to it, right?
Yeah. People are not used to it. I used to think, like, why am I not a diplomatic person? Like a few years back. Like, why can I just smile and say everything is fine and then walk away from it? And I need to confront it. I need to tell people, oh, this is not how it's supposed to be, or this is so. Then, this inclusivity that you're telling me about, this is how I felt it. Like I felt it being direct and transparent, but then I put a top of what you're saying, lay back a bit, hold people's space, and then see what they are also doing. So I think that this was the gut feeling that I had before being educated into that, and like forcing myself sometimes to hold space even if I didn't want to, or like figure things out. But how you're working with youth,
Yes.
how do you teach young people to understand these concepts, which are even harder for us?
So the first thing to understand is none of this is without conflict.
I'm so happy to say this again.
None of it is without conflict, right? It's exactly like the discussion we were having a few minutes ago about resilience. None of it is without conflict. Yeah. The problem we have as human species in this environment, in the society we're in, is we're taught to run away from conflict. We're not taught to look at conflict and say, wow, here's a growth opportunity. We're taught to say, oh, I don't want to make the person mad. Oh, that person hurt my feelings. I'm now going to be angry. And we don't look at it as like, ooh, that stung. Why did it sting? What am I going to learn? This sucks. Okay, what can I do to change this? Okay, no. We react. Oh, you got next. I'm gonna get you next time.
Or we hide,
or we retreat. Right. Yeah. So it's a fight or flight. I'm either gonna fight you, or I'm gonna hold back, and then the next time I'm not gonna tell you anything because the last time I told you something, I got stung for it. Right. So that's the first thing I teach them. And conflict is not necessarily equal negativity. What the most important thing is to do is to understand what's triggering me, what's causing me to feel this way. Is the person actually wrong, or is this my issue? Is it my ego? Is it my pride? Like, what is it? But the most important part of all of this when I work with young people is, yes, we talk about values, and I help them understand, like, what's the deep-seated element of those values you're trying to, but beyond all of that is a confidence. If I teach you, or we go deep into you understanding what your value means to you, how you want to live it, either in work or in, if you don't have the confidence to live it and to stand by it, you're going to be in constant conflict with how it does or doesn't play out. But if I teach you, or we walk through and you start to understand it better, and then you are conflicted at times, you're still going to have the confidence to say, no, this is important enough. I want you to understand where this is coming from. And you'll be able to get through the conflicts.
How do you get that confidence?
It takes time. It takes patience. It takes practice. You have to be challenged. If you're never challenged, when the challenge comes, then you run away. You've got to go through and see and recognize, this is a challenge, but this is really important. Okay, why is that? And then you question yourself, but not question yourself like rumination. Oh, poor me, this hurt.
Yeah.
But question yourself as in, okay, I don't like this because it's making me feel this way, because it's actually going against this value. And that's important to me, and I know why that's important to me, so I'm going to stick with it. I believe in it enough that I'm going to stick with it. And when you practice it enough, it becomes a no-brainer, right? When
reflex,
the first time you say no to your parent, you're scared. You're like, dude, am I going to get a smack in the ear? Or am I going to get yelled at? Are they going to discipline me? And this is what teenagers learn. But then the more that you stand up and you become more confident in what your value is, and you don't have to stand up and be disrespectful.
Of course.
There's different ways to become confident in the value that you believe in. But it's not like we don't know how to develop that confidence. We just don't always choose to stand by it the way that we should.
Yeah.
So it's the constant micro practices.
It's very interesting that you're doing this with youth.
Yes.
Because I honestly, not that I'm judgmental, but I honestly see that when you find yourself in your mid-30s, mid-40s, mid-50s, that, I don't know, you have this big bomb knocking at your door and you don't know what's happening and where to take it from. I think it's caused by us avoiding conflict and putting things under the mat.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And then the garbage, or how you should say it, grows and grows and grows. And at one point it explodes.
Yes.
So I think what it's important for youth to realize that they suffer less if they start doing this from when they are younger
Yes.
than if they're doing it later, because then the pain is bigger, because you have to change everything. You don't know where to start, and you and basically you don't have 20 years of basically running away from yourself, because that's what you do when you don't. You know, when you're not true to yourself, you're running away from who you are, and you're getting further and further away. And then, oh damn, like how
You can bring it back.
how it's like so much effort, like the huge amount of effort to my question now is, you're working with youth, but you're working also with their parents, and how do you cope with the differences in because they have years, tens of years of doing it this way, and yeah.
So I asked.
Who's more receptive?
So the youth are much more receptive because they understand that what I'm doing is setting them up for success, right? The parents are receptive to what's happening with their youngster, but the key to them is when I ask one question: what would this have done for you 20, 30 years ago?
So powerful. Yeah.
And then they look at me. Damn, I would have made so many other choices than the ones that I've made. It's the same thing when I work in the businesses. When we're working with the new graduates and we're talking to HR about the environment that they're creating, and when I'm talking to those managers, sometimes those managers have been in those roles for a long time. And I ask a similar question. If you were given the opportunity that these new grads were given, what do you think that would have done to your life now?
Yeah, that's very powerful. I was thinking, because I told you that I have these discussions with my mom still and my dad, and I'm trying to, whenever we get to a point where, you know, it's a bit conflictual, I'm trying to tell them how I feel, like how this makes me feel, and not always in a nice manner, maybe, of course,
we're
because
not perfect.
Balanced means But when we bring this in a business environment where people are more stressed, where there are also external things that affect us, like their bosses, KPIs, bonuses, I don't know what else.
Yes.
So then you don't have, you know, the same environment.
Yeah.
What's the difference than teaching the youth to work with their parents than the youth to work with the businesses?
Oh, I'll tell you what the difference is. When you're at home with your folks, your guard's down.
Sure, yeah.
Right? Like you don't need to pretend. They know the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
They know stuff that you don't ever want anyone else to know. Yeah. So you can be that fully authentic person and just be like, dude, this is how I felt, and this is how you're making me feel, and this is why it's not working. For all the conversation about authentic self, you cannot bring that person to work. Right? Even if someone triggers you, the last thing you want to be doing is sitting in a board meeting with tears. You made me feel this way because when I was 10, my mom said this, and now you're triggering. Yeah, you cannot do that.
Yeah.
Right? So, and this is where when I say live your values in the workplace, it's exactly the same concept. You're bringing to a professional space a professional discussion that's still true to you. So where you might say to your mom, look, when you say that, like, this sucks. It not only does it hurt my feeling, but it reminds me of da, and I don't know if this is what you're trying to do, but we need to find another way to deal with it. When you're in a work environment, you're going to say something more to the lines of, when you express your opinion in this way, it's unfair because I feel that you're trying to undermine my position, and that is not helpful for maybe what we're trying to achieve. Right? Or I'm getting, for instance, when a woman is being talked over,
Yeah.
right, in a meeting, and she wants to express that she might say something more along the lines of, we're all sitting in this meeting together as equals, and this is a point that I think is important. Thank you for bringing up the point that I brought up earlier. Let's discuss it, as opposed to feeling like she's been brushed off and she can't say anything. So there's different ways to say it. You're still saying, I'm being triggered
sure.
by what's happening,
But you don't have.
but you're going to bring it in a way that doesn't diminish your professionalism in the space where you're expected to be professional. And I feel like a lot of the times people struggle, right? Companies, when they hear that someone's coming in, that there are values, and they want to work for a company that has certain values and exposes a certain thing.
That what's this fluffy thing, right?
And the companies are like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
Right? Because they're not understanding what the young people are saying, or something like, politics sucks. I don't understand it, and I don't want to go by your old ways of dealing with it. But yet those young people also need to recognize that you're not at home, right? You're not with your crew.
Yeah.
You can't just come into the office and expect everybody to hear everything from, because your value is openness, or you don't want to have to, not bring who you are to the workplace. Fine, but I wouldn't. There are things you just don't bring here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But you can still be authentic to who you are here. Right? So it's that distinction that really holds home. Because if you feel like, I'm going to come and still live the values that are important to me, but I'm going to be professional about it, you still feel empowered.
Yeah.
You still feel empowered.
And
no one's taking it away.
Motivated, yes.
Yeah. You're motivated. You still feel like you belong. You feel like you can contribute. You feel like you can listen to others because others will listen to you.
Yeah.
You feel like you're going to be given space to find your place, and it's expected of you to do the same.
And this is how you engage Generation Z. Yeah. And how you make them feel that they belong.
Yes.
And how you motivate them, and how you make them be productive without putting controls around it.
And this is why I say you lose the DEIB discussion. Because if I'm naturally being, and you have to learn this, you don't come out of high school or university knowing how to do this. This is what the soft skills of being in business teaches you. But if the environment around you is actually motivating this type of growth, then your diversity is heard because I'm giving you space and you're giving me space. Well, then yes, we have an environment of inclusion, which means that I'm listening, which means that that higher functioning team is coming out because I have an innovative idea and I know I'll have the space to share it. I know people will listen. I know I'll be respected. And even if someone disagrees, they're at least going to hear. We're going to find a way around it. It's not a personal attack. And then when I do feel triggered, because we're human and we will be triggered, when I do feel triggered, I'm going to have a way or means of working through that. You will. And even with all the cultural differences, well, the woman, she shouldn't really, and the man, and okay, but you find, and sometimes you need guidance, right? Sometimes HR has to step in, or you bring in a coach, or the manager is trained in certain conflict resolution techniques that allow people to learn these things. But when people feel that they're in a position where they grow, they don't want to leave.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't want to leave, especially youth. When a young person starts a new job, they never start thinking, I know everything and I don't need to grow and just listen to me and I got all. No, they come in, this is really exciting. I'm going to learn something new. I'm going to develop and I'm going to be given space to do so. So if they're feeling like that's actually happening and they're growing as a person, well, watch out. They're not going anywhere. you don't have to worry about 12, 18 months down the road. Dude, that guy is in
Exactly.
here for
That's
years.
here for years, yeah.
You've got the engaged employee. You've got the innovation because they're impacted by all that's happening around them and they're bringing that to the office because they can. They're not going to get shot down. They're going to at least be given an opportunity to throw that seed into the conversation and see whether or not it germinates and a new idea comes out of it.
Innovation, yeah. But I have a final question for you.
Sure.
And it's related to, because you worked with a lot of companies, with a lot of associations. I know that. What's the percentage that the companies are, like the readiness, the percentage of readiness of the companies that you see right now? Because that's what we've talked about. That's a lot of work put in by everyone at the table.
Yes.
So
It's a good question. So I would say within a company, the largest percentage of readiness usually sits in HR and amongst managers, right? You're looking at sort of 80, 90% of the companies are happy to look at these new ways of doing things because HR has people as their focal point, and the managers are struggling to manage the people to get the business going. In terms of receptiveness to what I'm bringing to the table when I meet with them, I would say that it's probably closer to 45% of companies are actually able to hear and understand the message. And I don't mean that if I approach HR, they seem ready, but it's sometimes the companies are willing to put the budget in because they don't see the long-term benefit. They see the short-term need for something else, right?
yeah.
So I think that there's definitely an interest, and there are a higher percentage of people who understand the benefit long-term. But a lot of the people on the top they're old school. I worked under them. The focus is on the productivity, and the productivity is going to be achieved when we follow the ways that things need to be done. And if those young people come in and they leave after 2 years, and that's just the way it is right now. They only want to be here for a year or two, let them go. And I say, yeah, but how many people have you let go and then hired them 5 years later at like 4 times the price it would have than if you had just... And how much have you lost from, either lack of knowledge management or, cultural shifts that happen in the organization that don't have to happen, that are negative, that you have to then claw back. There's so much that is lost. And then everyone's trying to chase all these new fads, right? The ESG, the sustainability, the DEI, they're great ideas, but you got to really buy into them.
Exactly.
You have to truly understand what it is you're trying to achieve.
And what's the benefit long term.
Correct.
Because I think that there's no monetization behind losing people. The loss that you made, the cost that you make by
the training costs, the recruitment costs, the knowledge loss, the leaky, the cultural loss when people don't feel that there is stability within the organization. All of these things matter. And the future of work is the youth. So the future of work says things are different now. And that's what we need to focus on.
Superb. Thank you so much for this discussion. I would stay 3 more hours here with you, but we have to wrap it up.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.